Hello and welcome to another episode of Educational. This is Roy.
This is Terry.
So we are a podcast that we are chronicling our journey, not only my journey through getting close to the aging point and aging process, but also both of our parents are getting to that point that they need more and more help. And actually, I think Terry was out last week with my mom looking at maybe an independent living apartment, something for them to downsize into. So, we want to chronicle all these different things because, number one, we don't want you to think that you're alone. There's a lot of us going through this and, it's trying to navigate. Hopefully we can give you some information that we've learned along the way. But today we've got an interesting guest. She's someone that we have followed on Instagram, and we just love her story so much that we reached out. Luckily, she didn't think that we were crazed internet stalkers, and so she didn't reach back out to us.
Yeah, but that's beside the point.
She agreed to be on here. Ciana Singh is with us, and Ciana, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And I just want to set the backdrop a little bit of what we see. But you, your mother, and your grandmother all live together, and your grandmother does need a caregiver, most full-time, I suspect, and so that has become your role. You were out on your own, ended up moving back so you could be her primary caregiver. But we talked a little bit pre-show. I think one of probably the last episode or the last posting we saw from you that made the point that we knew we needed to reach out was that. I think you got your grandmother fixed up with the bowl of cereal or a bowl of stew or something like that, and you were getting on your treadmill across the room to work out. But just, it's just being able to try to live your life as you take care of her. So first off, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how did this come about to where, you became your grandmother's primary caregiver?
Yeah. So about 5 years, I noticed that my grandmother could not drive anymore. She was just having a tough time with, small every day-to-day things that she used to do. So I said, hey, Grandma, why don't I just start to take over and take you to your doctor's appointments and take you to the store and, we can spend time together and it'll be fun. So I started doing that. And as the time progressed, I noticed that different areas of her cognitive abilities were declining. So her ability to speak, her ability to pay attention to her bank account, her ability to dress herself, her ability to do, things head to toe for hygiene. And the biggest thing is that when she started trying to wander away from the home is when I decided to move in.
Okay.
And was she living on her own at that point, or was she with your mom?
So her and my mom and my grandmother have lived together since I was a young child. So kind of the same story before we were talking, before we started. My mother had my grandmother move in with us when I was very, very young. So I'm very, very attached to my grandmother. So it's almost like I had two moms.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm in that, we were talking pre-show. I'm kind of in that position. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was very close with us. And I had the good fortune, and my kids had the good fortune that she, even though she wouldn't give up her house for a long time, for a couple of years, she would still come and stay with us probably, 4 or 5 nights every week. And so it was an amazing experience that we all bonded and got along very well. So it can be good if you can make it work. But there, the important part is something that we talk about here a lot too. It's that not giving up yourself. And I know that you struggle. Well,
everybody,
everybody struggles, but you have become, I guess, very good at designing things like that instance where you could get her set up where you could keep her busy for a little bit. That would allow you to get on the treadmill.
Yep.
Yeah, because people like myself, I would just be like, plopping
So
down on the couch. Like,
so tired, I need a nap.
Love it. It was difficult. I'm not gonna lie. When I started taking care of my grandmother for, going into full time from part time, I completely lost my sense of balance when it comes to, taking care of my mental health, taking care of the things that, I love to do. I'm a big traveler, right before I started taking care of her full time, I was traveling to Egypt. I went to London, and I had all these other plans on going, to other areas overseas. And I really had to, take a halt at that particular part of my life. And then I started noticing that not only was I neglecting, things that I love, like traveling, but it was even coming down to my fitness goals, my nutritional goals for myself, just things that I love to do. And I woke up one day and was like, I have to figure this out. God's put me in this position for a reason. And instead of looking at it like a prison sentence, I need to start looking at it as a privilege and an honor. So that's kind of what helped me flip my mind to, looking at this an opportunity to balance, and then also, get creative. And then, look at this time as spending with my grandmother as an honor. So.
And how long, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So how long ago did this happen as far as your grandmother? And your grandmother's name is Chuckie, right?
Yeah. So she has been diagnosed for a total amount of years of 9 years. Okay. She was starting to really, really struggle on a high level about 3 years ago. So now I would say she's in her severe late stages, but when I decided to go full time, it was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. That's a great message about flipping the switch, because I do think that we, in America, there's other cultures. I'm not sure about Europe, but I know with the Asian cultures, very family oriented, and they want, I think, sometimes over there it's the opposite. They actually fight to see who gets to take care of mom and dad, where we kind of fight to see who has to take care of mom
they
and
respect
dad.
their elders, and it's a big thing for them to be able to take care of their elders, and that your family is such a great unit that was kind of instilled. I mean, you were so close to your grandmother that you felt that you wanted to do this. That's an awesome thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So what are some, I guess, first off, what are some tricks or tips or hacks that you have, kind of like the treadmill thing? Are you able to be in a position to actually get out of the house some and go?
Yeah, so that's actually significantly been reduced lately, just because she is in such a severe stage of her dementia. However, I'm not letting that stop me. So for example, I love to meditate. That's very important to me. It's a part of how I start my day. So what I've started doing is I meditate with my grandma. And so I'll set my grandma up. I'll set myself up. We both have our tea in the morning. Usually she has juice or tea. And I'll sit and I'll put my meditation music on, and I'll do the meditation with her. Before it was something that I was doing alone, but I'm incorporating her into it. Yeah. So another example is I love to eat healthy food. So another thing that my grandmother used to love to do was cook. So now I incorporate her into that. She can't cook anymore. She can't even speak anymore. But I don't let her handle any utensils or anything like that. But I literally set up a chair. I'll put it in the kitchen with me, and I, have her little fidget pillow, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, oh yeah, grandma, what should, I put this in, I'm going to put in the turmeric now, I'm going to put in the salt. And I just incorporate her into me doing a normal everyday thing that I'd be doing for myself. And it kind of knocks out two birds with one stone, because I'm keeping her highly engaged. And then I'm also doing something for myself. And then I'm also feeding her healthier food than she used to eat. She was big on the fried stuff. And so it's kind of like, I just incorporate her into my day. Another example, I have to check emails. So when I have to check emails, I literally sit next to her while she has her fidget pillow, or she'll have like her baby doll therapy, and I'll look at my emails. While I'm looking at my emails, she's sitting next to me. So I think, before I used to get so frustrated, and I really want to get this done, or I really need to read these emails, or I need to look at my bank statements, or I need to, because I had 2 jobs at one point, but before the coronavirus, I was balancing both caregiving and doing both jobs. Now I just am taking care of her. So I used to have to check emails. And instead of getting frustrated, again, I just incorporated her with that. So that's what I would say I do the most, is just, instead of looking at it like I'm used to doing something this way, I just have shifted it to how can I blend the two and how can I balance the two.
Now, and I do have a couple questions of some things, like first off, the meditation. So what is her response? Does she, and I guess you said she's nonverbal, so I know it's not like she's talking, but does she sit quietly and you feel like that she's involved, or is she still moving around? Or I guess, how does that go day to day?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So at this stage, she's very immobile. So it kind of works out to my benefit now, because she's, she doesn't really stand up on her own unless I pick her up. Or, again, she speaks in gibberish. She'll randomly say like a word here or there, but she doesn't really speak much. And then again, it's really early in the morning, when I like to meditate. So she's typically like kind of getting up herself. So we're in kind of like a routine now. However, during the middle stages, I would say that's the most difficult time period, because she was still very verbal and she was still very mobile. So during those time periods, my meditation and things like that did suffer. I guess you could call it suffering. But I mean, really, it was just replaced with caring for my grandmother. Yeah. So I had to figure it out. I said, okay, I'm not able to do something important to me anymore, because I'm shifting that time period to my grandmother now. So instead of dishonoring that, I just started honoring that. I said, hey, look, like, if this point in my life, I can't do a meditation because I'm taking care of my grandmother, that is to be honored. And I should be grateful for that, because again, I could be sick myself. I could have, be in a position where I can't care for my grandmother. So I just started to shift my mindset. When it came to like, being invited to places, or going, out in LA and being a young girl and wanting to, be social. I said, instead of being, oh, I have to miss out on this, it's no, I get to take care of my grandmother during this time of her life. And it's a short season and it's something to be honored. So
that's awesome.
Short season. I mean, not that I love the short part, but the season of caregiving that you're going on, being able to see that as a privilege is an awesome thing.
Yeah.
I commend you. Oh my God.
That's a lot of maturity. I mean, because, it's even hard, even at my age, even though I know somebody's going to have to take care of me shortly, still, it's like, thinking about the things that, looking at it from the other perspective of having to give things up, instead of, hey, you know what, this can be my pleasurable thing. This is my way to give back. And so that's a great spirit and a great attitude. The other thing I was going to ask you was about the cooking. When you pull her up and set her down and you're communicating with her, do you feel that she, even if she's nonverbal to you, do you feel like that she is on the same page with you and that she's in there cooking with you? Or
is she telling you to throw in some more cumin over here and some basil over there?
Honestly, no. She's not really interactive. She's not, her eye contact is not there. Okay. But I can tell that there's some level of feeling involved, just because I'm paying attention to her cues with her body now. Yeah. So it's almost like we've developed a way to communicate, although she is speaking in gibberish now. So I'll look at how quickly she moves her hands, in her fingers. Okay. I'll look at if she's moving her feet like this. Usually I could tell if she's happy or engaged, if she's moving her feet, like, kind of when you're happy and you're excited. Yeah. If she is sitting open, like with her body just straight forward and her legs not crossed, she's kind of just like not paying attention. If she has her legs crossed, I feel like she's comfortable, because like that's always been her thing. She crosses her legs and she's getting involved in like a nice, conversation with her friends or whatever. That's her thing. So I can tell when she's into it. When she's has her legs uncrossed and she's kind of just looking down, she's not into it. So that's kind of where we're at with this stage. But because, just in a lot of the research that I've done, it's my job as a caregiver to keep her as highly engaged as possible. So even though she's not really, having the eye contact or she's speaking back to me, just me speaking with her is a way to just keep her brain having some level of function with just even hearing the sound of my voice.
Yeah, so that was the next question I was going to ask you was, have you gone through, do you have a formal background in caregiving, or is this things that you have learned just research along the way, or how have you been able to become this self-aware, not only of yourself, but of, I guess the engagement or the surrounding of your grandmother as well?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I was in the dark. I was lost. I was confused. I was frustrated. I was upset. I was angry. I was like, I thought I was just going to be taking my grandmother to the store. Like, I just thought I was going to be taking my grandma to the doctor's appointment and we go for lunch. Like, I never knew that it would turn into this huge chunk of my time in my life being invested in my grandmother. So that's just the honest truth. I had no idea what I was signing up for. And, I have to be honest, a lot of times when some of my family members or friends will say, wow, you're just such a good person. You're making this huge sacrifice. Well, not honestly, no, like I didn't know what I was signing up for. And if I did know what I was signing up for, who knows how I would have reacted. So, that's just the honest truth. Same for, I could speak for me and my mother about this. We were very, very uneducated on this. So as time went on and the high level of stress, the high level of frustration, the high level of just sadness and confusion, because again, with dementia, they become very, very feisty, very, very, my grandmother even got physical. And, I mean, she's old and it's not like when she hit me, it hurt or anything,
Right.
but that was tough. At the time, I didn't know that her brain was dying. I just thought that she was being mean, to me and my mom. And so we would argue and all that. So I was like, there has to be a solution for this. Like, this just doesn't feel like I'm just supposed to deal with this. Like there's something going on. So I started, doing, looking on YouTube, and just literally started Googling stuff. And I started to learn and come to find out that she literally has no control over what's happening to her. And unfortunately, when she got diagnosed 8 years ago, she got a diagnosing, they ask you a couple questions about a clock. They ask you to write some stuff down and they kind of just diagnose you and give you some medication. And then that's it. And they don't, and that was just our experience, at least. I don't want to speak for anyone else's behalf or on the medical system, but our particular experience was, here's a medication, good luck. So we just thought she would forget things here and there, but that's not the case. It's not a memory issue. It's a cognitive decline issue, right? So I started doing research and I never knew that there was an abundance of information out there, an abundance of resources, free, by the way, by the Alzheimer's organization. There's also Alzheimer's LA, which is like another sector. There's adult daycare that is offered in a lot of local communities around the United States. So when I just started researching myself, I got opened up to a plethora of information and then started to learn different tactics on how to stay calm and how to stay patient in combination with, again, my personal ideals as far as meditating and eating healthy and stuff like that. So that's how I was able to come to a level of like maturity and acceptance and a high level of patience.
So
Wow.
what about y'all sleep patterns? Because I know that can be, it's not only huge for the individual that's being cared for, but also when we get tired, our patients become thin. And, I used to be an ombudsman for the state, volunteer ombudsman for the state of Texas. And so one thing that we noticed in our nursing homes is that when staff had to double over shifts, when they were pulling double shifts or working, crazy hours, 3 or 4 weeks with no days off, the tireder they became, the more susceptible to abusive situation. It could be verbal or just talking mean to the resident or whatever. So I'm interested, how do y'all, well, what's her sleep pattern, number one, and then kind of how do you match that where you can get enough rest where you feel good every day?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I can say that right now we are in a better sleep pattern and a better schedule with her sleeping. She, again, because I think she's just so weak, and she's in the late stages. She, goes to sleep around 12, like midnight, maybe 1 in the morning, and then she wakes up like around 8. So it's, that's basically when me and my mom go to sleep. Now, about 2 years ago, she was getting up at 3 in the morning, fully dressed, trying to leave the house. So during those stages, it was just difficult. It was difficult. It was, a high level of stress. Again, like to your point of when you're lack of sleep, and a high level of stress, you don't handle things as best as you possibly could have. If I would have known now what I know now, then I probably would have handled it a lot differently. But just because I was uneducated and I was misinformed, I just kind of just got through the day the best that I could. There was no real rhyme, there was no real steps or any breathing tactics or anything that I was doing. But now there's so many amazing resources on YouTube. I actually found that they have done studies where if you breathe, just literally take 5 minutes of breathing, throughout the day, so 5 different times throughout the day, you actually can reduce your level of stress, even if you are sleep deprived. So usually when we're in like a high level stress environment or position, we stop breathing, right? We just start kind of like restraining our breath for whatever I guess it's just like a natural human reaction. So if you just literally allow yourself to breathe, that will, definitely help you out. So yeah, during that time, I was not breathing, I was not meditating. I just was kind of getting through the day and it was stressful. But what I want to tell others out there that are in the beginning stages or mid stages, if you just take 2 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes throughout the day, there literally is an abundance of studies shown that really helps with just being able to get through each moment.
Okay, interesting.
I was going to ask you, okay, so you talked about when a few years ago or 3 years ago, I guess, when she would get up at 3 a.m. and get fully dressed and try to leave. So did you have, I remember this about my dad because my dad had a long battle with Alzheimer's as well. And he passed away about 6.5 years ago.
Right.
But I remember, when mom and dad were still in the house that they lived in for a long time, he would, and he was still driving. It was not fun.
Wow.
Yeah. And he would put his car keys in the freezer, and we would look forever for those cars, just weird places to store things. I remember like it was yesterday, and him going out, trying to leave in the middle of the night many times. We started putting up signs, just stop, whatever. We didn't really have the alarms and all of that. So were you able to have alarms? Did you hear her getting up and rummaging around? How did you do that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So we started bells on her door. We started putting bells on her door and bells on the front door. So that was, again, not informed, had no idea about resources or if this was even normal. Like we didn't know that this was even normal for people with dementia to be doing. We just thought it was like our individualized circumstances with my grandmother. So we started doing the bell thing. I even started tying like a scarf, like in such a way to where she wouldn't even be able to open up the front door. Like she just wouldn't be able to like undo the knot. So it was just like some makeshift ways to just keep her from leaving. And then because when she started trying to leave, I would sleep in the living room during the stage of her, wanting to try to leave. So she couldn't get past me. I mean, I was kind of like, when you kind of just kind of have like sleep with like a one eye open, I guess you could say. So I just had to like, that was just the stage that I was in. And then of course her trying to leave out of the front door, I would hear the bells, I would hear her struggling to try to undo the knot. And I would wake up and I would have to, get up, move her back into the room, try to get her to calm down and try to put her back to sleep. But like you said, you mentioned the stop signs. What I do want to tell everyone out there, there's a ton of different ways and a ton of different things that you can do. You can literally they have these things, I think you can get them like anywhere, like on Amazon, I'm not sure. But you can literally put a bookcase over the door to where, it doesn't look like it's a front door or like a big stop sign, because that is something that they recognize. I also started, me and my mom, we had our maintenance install a lock, like, like the chain lock. We had them install it at the very top of the door. So she literally couldn't like even reach it. So if she tried to open up the door, it would like make a noise, and then, you know, of course from opening it would like slam back forward. So that's what we had to do. I know that there is alarm systems you can put. There's pillowcase alarm systems. There's a mat that they can sleep on that will like start to make a noise if they try to get up. There's a mat that you can put at the foot of the bed, so if they walk past it, you know, it'll alarm. Again, and then we started having the camera system. So the camera system, and it's a baby monitor. The baby monitors have a really sensitive, the speaker on is very sensitive, so you could almost even hear her breathing. Oh, so wow. She started to get up, we could hear the shuffling. So I mean, you know, with the alarm, with the lock, with the bells, with the camera, we kind of just did all of that. There's also another thing I do want to add really quick is, if your loved one is starting to wander, they do have these devices that they can wear, to where it's a GPS system. So if they are able to, for some reason, to get out, it's a GPS system, and you can literally call the police. They have that GPS system in the system, and they just literally alert it's kind of like a, you know, when 911 is trying to find someone like in the mountains or whatever, or like, and they ping a cell phone. Oh yeah, yeah. It's like that. They ping like that GPS device, and they're able to find them. So it was like a bracelet or in yes, or whatever. Yes. So if you just get in contact with Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's organization, they'll connect you with someone that can get you set up with that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, because in the early stages, I know that what they can also do is set up a perimeter, you know, like a 2-mile radius of your home. And if they break that radius, then, you know, you would be alerted and alarmed, and a lot of great inventions out there.
Yeah.
Because when you redirected her when she was at the door already, did she become combative, or was it easier for you to get her back in bed to understand that it wasn't time to go anywhere?
You know, I would, at the beginning stages, I would get mad and frustrated. We would get an argument, and I would say, what are you doing? It's 3 a.m. You need to, you know, lay down. What are you doing? And she's like, don't tell me what to do. So it was bad at the beginning. It was bad. But I then learned that there is tactics and ways to where you can meet them in their world, right? So she's trying to go somewhere because, you know, maybe she's used to going to work every day, and it's, you know, she's confused. So I'd say about 6 months in, I would reason with her. You know, of course, I'd be tired, puffy-eyed, all, but I would reason. I would say, "Oh, Grandma, where are you trying to go?" And she's like, "Well, I need to go somewhere." I say, "Okay, that's great. Well, how about this? Why don't we both get some rest, just get a couple hours of sleep, and then in the morning, me and you can get up, get ready, and then we can go on a drive, or we can go where you'd like to go." And she'd be like, "Okay, you know, like." I'm open for that. So I would find ways to reason with her. I would say, let's do this together. You know, and then even my approach started to be more calm, because I would approach her very, you know, frustrated and annoyed and tired. But then I just started to say, hey, look, like, she doesn't know what she's doing. So then I would approach her like, hey, Grandma, where are you trying to go? So my approach got more calm. I started to reason with her, and I started to meet her where she was at.
Yeah, and there was it was a community that I was visiting one time that they had a resident that he wanted to go to work every morning, and he would get very upset because he's like, I have got to catch this bus. And after a while, you know, instead of trying to stifle him or to tell him how wrong he was, what they did is they got a briefcase and a hat, and they hung it up on the hat rack in the office. When he came in, he'd get his hat, his briefcase. He'd make about 3 laps around the hall, come back, put it down. You know, he was done. He got it out of his system. So I think that's important, that, you know, where we can, within safety of everybody involved, you know, we kind of have to figure out ways to just let them be where they are, and not always trying to bring them back to reality, because luckily I haven't had to deal with it, but I've heard that is just a losing battle, that we will never be able to argue them back to where we want them to be, or where we are in this place and time. But we have to figure out, you know, kind of like you did, how can we redirect them in order just to have some peace as well?
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I mean, that's exactly it. You know, there's a couple times where I even let her wander. So, she got ready, got up, and instead of one day, I just was like, I'm just gonna I'm not gonna even lock the door. I'm just gonna let her wander, and I'm just gonna be 6 feet behind her, and I'm just curious, where does she feel like she needs to go? What is she trying to do?
Yeah.
So I did that. She was, comfortably walking down the hall. She had her purse with her, she had her jacket going on. She even remembered how to push, the elevator, and she was waiting for the elevator.
Wow.
And then she got really confused at that point, because she's like, okay, wait, do I get on the elevator? Do I what am I doing here? Because we used to live in Sacramento. We always lived in a home, like a house.
Yeah.
So now we live in an apartment building. So I think she was reverting back, like, wait a minute, I just pushed the elevator button, but I'm not sure what to do. So then she just kind of did like a little bit of a lap, and like just kind of looking around, and then went back into the house. Did it again. So she wanted to leave the next day. I was like, okay, I'm going to see if she's going to do the same thing again. This time she figured out how to get on to the elevator. So I just got onto the elevator with her. I didn't say anything. I just acted like I was a random person. She's not even paying attention to me, that I'm there following her. She walks out to the parking lot. She goes to the front of the apartment building, and she's just waiting. She's just waiting. And I asked her, I said, Grandma, who are you waiting for? And she's like, I gotta go. And I was like, okay, we'll just wait. And we waited, and she kind of got confused after about 10, 20 minutes. And she just was willing to let me guide her back upstairs.
Yeah.
So I think after those moments of allowing her to see that she's going to be very confused when she's going on her own, it kind of made her not want to do them anymore.
Yeah.
So
So-
when did y'all make that move from the house to the apartment? How long ago was that?
It was about 8 years ago, which
Okay.
is,
Okay.
8 years ago.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how did she? Of course, 8 years ago she wasn't near as I guess she wasn't as far along as she is now. But was that hard on her to make that move?
Yeah. So the thing is, it's kind of interesting story. So my family, my family and I were raised in Los Angeles. The 1994 earthquake happened, so we moved up to Sacramento. My mom's job got moved up to Sacramento. So during that time, my mom just had me and my brother. She's a single mom. She needed help. So my grandmother moved from LA up to Sacramento to help her. So from my late elementary school years all the way up until high school, I was in Sacramento. But then I came back down to Los Angeles for college and all that stuff. So I've been back for a long time. So my grandmother had been saying after she just stopped working, she was like, I really want to be back in LA. And so my mom would be like, okay, maybe in a couple years. So finally my grandmother was like, I'm putting my foot down. I would love to be back in LA. And so my mom was like, okay, well, Ciana's down there. I have a job opportunity I can do out there, let's move down there. So that's why they moved. Because they had been living in Sacramento for about 20 years. So that was like, a big chunk of her life. She's very comfortable in LA because she was raised out here, but then a big chunk of her life was also in Sacramento. So I think when she came back down here, they didn't move to the same area. They moved to a different area. So this area is not hardwired into her brain. Like, they used to live in, like Carson area, like more south. And now we live in, the Central Valley, or the San Fernando Valley. So yeah.
Yeah, because one thing I've always heard, it's not just dementia patients, but it's just mainly anybody as they get older. It's the change is very difficult.
Yeah.
But for people with the dementia diagnosis, sometimes it's just, more than that they can handle, makes them very agitated. But it sounds like y'all probably moved back, way before things reach that point.
And
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, was she diagnosed while they were in Sacramento, or was she diagnosed when they came back to LA? And what was her understanding of what her diagnosis was?
No, that's a good question. So before they moved back down here to Los Angeles, we believe that she actually had dementia starting then, but we didn't know it. So when they moved back down here, I think her confusion enhanced because now she's out of, Sacramento, and she's down in Los Angeles, and she doesn't remember the streets. She doesn't know, where her normal corner store is, and her Walgreens and her grocery store, and, just like little things that she liked to do around the city. So that's when it really started to be amplified that something was just off.
Right.
And she started complaining about sensation in her head, and then she wasn't able to finish sentences really anymore. She would just be in like the middle of a conversation and just like completely forget what she was talking about. So that's when she went and did the testing, and then found out that she had dementia. But I believe that, me and my mom believe that she had it a lot earlier. So it was out here. To answer your question, it was out here when she actually got diagnosed.
And did she understand? Could she fully understand what was going on, do you think?
So she knew she was struggling, and she has books on books on books, and I'll probably start to post them on my social media, but she has like about this thick of books of notepads of her literally writing every single instruction out for her life. So she would draw a like a remote controller, and she would draw the buttons, and she would say, you're supposed to push this button to turn the TV on. You're supposed to push this button, push this button to change the channel. You do this button to do the volume. She started doing it. She started to draw her toothbrush. You use this to brush your teeth. She started to draw everything. And it's almost, I know. Well, see, my grandmother was an artist. Outside of her working her whole life, she was really, I think her calling was really to be an artist. Her art is gorgeous. And so she was just, so she started drawing her entire life out into these books. And so she would label them. She would say, this is for bathroom care. This is for, and so that's when I started to notice too. I was like, I used to think it was cool. I was like, oh, how cool is this? Like, my grandmother knows she's diagnosed with dementia, but she's like getting in front of it. She's not letting it defeat her. But she didn't know, I didn't know, my mom didn't know that this was just going to significantly decline. And so even her writing where her toothbrush was and what a toothbrush looked like, and even what a dress, she had all these dresses and shoes and all these things. I wish I would have actually brought it to show you guys, but she forgot to even know how to look at the book to even do all that stuff. So right. I mean, it was her way of to answer your question, it was her way of holding on. She knew something was off, but she wasn't able to communicate exactly what she was going through. We had done no research, and so we were just kind of going through each day and taking it as it came. And I really wish that we had did the research and knew what was going on at the beginning stages, so we could have even prolonged it from getting as worse. Because now there's studies that are coming out that you could even almost even prevent it. You won't hear that from a primary care doctor, but there is several case studies and books out there that show that you could even prevent it from coming on. So we're doing those things now for my mom and my aunt and my uncle, so that way, they don't have to deal with that, in their later golden years.
Yeah.
And through diet and all of that. Yeah. Yep.
Turmeric, MCT oil, when you would just keep cognitively, stimulated. And really, I think the biggest thing is just always having something to live for, like something of value. I think a lot of times when people, when they retire and all their kids are grown and, they live far, even if they live far away, it's like, kind of like, well, what's the point of me even being here, anymore? My grandmother was someone that was on the go all the time. And then it just stopped. And then she didn't have to take care of her grandkids anymore. And then my mom was always working. So she was just in the room, kind of withering away. And I wish we would have been aware of that, then, and we would have maybe included her, or, maybe took her on more walks, or maybe, got her to get back into her art, all that. So that's why I started sharing on social media. I was like, I want to prevent this from, at least one person out there, for them to check in during the early stages.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to, your mom works, so it may not have been as much of an issue, but the masking of the person's situation or their stage, because we see that a lot with people that we're close to, is that the well person overcompensates for the sicker person, and they don't really like when there's people gatherings and things like that, it's hard to see how bad things really are, because all through the day somebody else has been doing all these chores for them. So that's
Yeah.
an important part. If you're a loved one, if you think of somebody that may be, drop in unexpectedly at times. And then I think you mentioned this in the beginning, but, look at the mail. Are they able to go through the mail? We've got an upcoming episode, unfortunately, that it was a lady whose family lived across the country. And so she had a caregiver. Her dementia got bad. And then I guess the next door neighbor and the caregiver conspired to,
Yes.
take this lady's
Got
bank
a hold
account,
of her
her
bank
bank
account.
account. And, it became a whole thing. So it's important to really stay in touch. And there's an old saying in the senior living world: trust but verify. And so
Yeah.
they may tell you that they're okay and life is good, but you always need to verify that. And if you know what to look for, there are always signs. But like you said, handling the mail, but you need to get in, like we talk about being on somebody's bank account as a preventative. If they live alone or in a different place, there's all kinds of steps that you can take. You just have to make the realization. And as kids, a lot of times we don't want to make that realization.
Yeah.
We're fighting
We're
it, saying
in
like
denial
we don't want
too.
to see it, and then they're fighting it like it ain't happening to me. But yet, so everybody being in denial can make for a really bad situation.
Yes, no, that's an excellent point. We actually ran into some issues, with getting my mother onto my grandmother's bank account, because what happened was she wasn't able to look at her bank account statement and really understand what was going on and even how to log in anymore. So my mom was like, okay, I'm going to take over your bank account. So they went to the bank and, and said, hey, my mother, she has dementia. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to, be, on her accounts now. And that particular day was an off day. So my grandmother was like, what are you talking about? So then it looked like my mom was trying to be like shady.
Oh,
Again, that's another thing. Like, we have to catch those things even earlier than that, to where, when they're basically able to kind of still do a lot, but they just have the diagnosing. Those are the stages when they understand, like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and, help you with your finances. I'm going to help you with your mail. I'm going to help you with your organization. I'm going to help you with this. They kind of know that they need help at the early stages. Like, I feel like my grandmother was more open. Like, she liked it. She's like, ooh, like my granddaughter or my daughter are helping me out. But then it got to a stage where she didn't really know who we were. And so we then became enemies.
Yeah.
We then became like someone that she was like weary of. And so it's like, well, why do you want to be in my bank account? Who are you anyway?
Yeah.
If we would have caught that a little earlier, we wouldn't have had to deal with that. So,
oh my God.
now we're on, like, her medical, my name is on there. I'm able to speak on her behalf. Power of attorney is so important to get on as early as you can, because you have to do interviews for that stuff. And if they're, in the interview and the interviewer is looking at them and seeming like they're okay, and they're like, I don't want you to be my power of attorney. What are you talking about? It just gets bad. So they actually deemed my grandmother as someone that wasn't fit to answer the question. So luckily that we were able to overcome that. But we've had moments with her medicals during medical moments and doctors authorizations and stuff like that, where my grandmother's like, I don't want to do that. And it's like, Grandma, we just talked about it 1 hour ago. Like, so all that stuff, needs to be organized and ready to go, at the beginning stages. And to your point, just the acceptance of it is, I think, the biggest hurdle to get over, and then just, again, the more organized you get, the earlier you accept it, the easier the process of these things will go. And then you'll have more energy to be patient when times get, difficult or moments get really hard. So.
Yeah. And it's hard because even though that they have this dementia, when they're in front of somebody else, they can be very convincing that they are in control of their faculties and that they are telling the truth. And so that's another reason to get out in front of it and don't wait, because that makes it even harder. Now other people are looking at you sideways, like, what are y'all trying to do to this poor old woman?
Yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me of the funniest story that I haven't thought about this in a long time, but a friend of mine was traveling with her little niece or nephew, and they're on an airplane. Of course, this is after 9/11, but they're on an airplane, and as they're coming into the airport, the stewardess is like telling the little girl, I mean, she was probably like, 6 or 8 at the time, you need to buckle up. And so the aunt was telling her to do this, and she got mad and she started screaming, "Who are you? Who are you?" And like, oh my God. And then the whole plane starts looking at her like, why have you kidnapped this person, or what's going on? And
Right. Oh,
it's hilarious in that situation. But when it's your loved one that, like I said, they can be very convincing. And then it just makes that hurdle even higher that you have to get over to prove that she is not okay and that really somebody does need to be helping with this.
yep. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Planning as possible.
Yeah.
You know, Ciana, I was going to ask you, can you tell
Yeah.
me about your grandmother? I mean, what kind of what kind of work did she do? What kind of person was she?
Yeah, no, so very, very funny woman, loves to crack jokes, loves to, back in her day, she used to have her cigarettes and her Bud Light. And, she would just, go to work. She worked at 3M for many, many years. After she worked at 3M for about 20 years, she then started working at this other company where she would work on motherboards. So she always just had very simple woman. She had a 9 to 5. She liked her 9 to 5. She would get off, she would get her beer, she would get her cigarette. And that's just kind of how I remember her. And she would, watch us when, we were there after school and, while my mom was working. So very, very loving, very, very funny, a little feisty. She, you couldn't pull too much past her. Me and my brother would try to do stuff and you'd try to get away with stuff. She wasn't having it. But just a very, just a lively, full of life. Everyone loved her. Everyone that met my grandmother, all my friends and just coworkers and people that have met her throughout my life, just love her. Ask me still to this day, how's your grandma doing? People from high school. So definitely made an impact. And she would also do art. So she is an amazing artist. I'm going to start to post some of her stuff, but she was an artist. She went to school for it. She was born in the South and then moved to Southern California when she was a baby. And, pretty much raised her, had her whole life out here and raised her 3 children, which is my mom, my aunt, and my uncle. I'm out here in Los Angeles. And, she, my grandfather, super cool guy. He's passed away from cancer about 15 years ago, but he was he was a singer. And so he was always on the road all the time. So she just, she was kind of a single mom in a way because he was always on the road. So she, just had her job. She had her kids, she had her cigarette, her Bud Light, and that's who she was. That's who she was.
Oh,
So-
it sounds so sweet.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, thanks so much. Do you have anything? Do you have something you want to say?
Well, let's
Go.
see. What else was I going to ask? What's your favorite memory as a child of your grandmother?
Ooh, that's easy.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, there's so many, but the one that always sticks out in my head the most is she would always sing this song, I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck and a hugger. So that was just our thing. Me, her, and my little brother, when she'd be watching us while my mom was at work to like help us, stay calm from like, where's mommy? We miss mommy. She would sing to us. And so that was our thing. She would sing to us. And, she would sit us up on the bed with her and we would watch Star Trek with her. And the simplicity of it, just like being in the bed, jumping up and down and singing with her and watching Star Wars, or I'm sorry, Star Trek and Star Wars. Actually, she was really into sci-fi. So yeah, I would say that's like the top favorite memories with her.
Oh,
That's cool.
sweet.
One thing else I was going to say, you mentioned respite care, and I think this is a point that a lot of people need to understand that it is available to them. And depending on where you live and some agencies, sometimes it can even be at no to very low cost. But yeah, don't let yourself get to the end of your rope. Take advantage of this respite care. If there's sometimes they will come into your house to give you a few hours off. Sometimes take them out to an adult daycare and let them stay there. And the adult daycares aren't necessarily just a place to warehouse somebody like they used to be. A lot of them today have art programs.
Yes.
They have field
Games,
trips,
yeah.
and yeah, other games besides bingo, very engaging things to do. So I would just challenge everybody, and it's not, we need to know as caregivers, we need to know when to quit, because a lot of times we get into the cycle of, well, I said I was going to take care of her and I need to be here. You did, but for her to get the very best care, sometimes we have to get a break ourselves, that self-care as a caregiver. So anyway, I would just ask everybody to seek it out, to find a location that's close that you can take advantage of, because you can attest, I'm sure, but a couple hours away can make a world of difference.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, just to add to that point, if you are in the San Fernando Valley area in Southern California, it's called First Generation. A lot of insurances cover it, and it's a adult daycare. I sat in even for her to get approved. I had to even sit in on a whole day with her. They sing to them. They have them read old newspaper articles. They do tons of art projects. They have them they do like little art projects and have them do gardening, all these kinds of things. So it's called First Generation in the San Fernando Valley area. Definitely check it out. I would highly recommend them. They're great.
Okay, great. Well, Ciana, we want to say thanks again. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to point out that Ciana says aunt and we say aunt.
Oh.
Yeah. I should. That's a Texas thing, unfortunately. The ant. I mean, we got ants. What's that?
That's something you step on.
Yeah. No.
Sorry.
No.
No, I love that.
Thank you so much for your postings too. I mean, we really enjoy it, and I feel like we've become to know you and your grandmother through your postings. So please keep that up, because I think as you have attested to and what you went through, it's like we never know what we don't know, and then now that you've come through this, it's like, if I'd have only known all of this in the very beginning, things would have been a lot different. So I think your message really gets out there and can help others, at the very least, find resources that they can turn to help them in whatever situation they're in. So it's
we
awesome.
appreciate you doing this. I mean, showing everybody your journey and who
Yeah.
your was and is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to, this is very encouraging, for me. Thank you so much for reaching out. And, messages like this from individuals like you really keep me going, actually. Because it's not easy, to post and I'm in the middle of being with her, and, no one knows what we just went through before I turn the camera on, so, encouraging words like this go a long way. So I appreciate it.
Keep it up. It's a great mission. And I feel like, in today's environment, the nice thing is you're not just helping your next door neighbor. I mean, you're actually helping people all across the world, the US for certain, but then across the world, that somebody else has gone through this and they've survived. And then here are some things that we can do to, help ourselves. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Keep
Very
up the good
important.
work. Maybe if Terry gets out to see her daughter, she can come look you and
bet.
Chuckie up.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to lunch. Absolutely. I'd be open to that.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Educational. You can, of course, find us at www.ag. Well, before I do that, do you want to tell us what I don't have the address, but you want to tell us your Instagram address for everybody?
You can check me and Grandma Chuckie out at with love Chuckie. That's at with love Chuckie.
Okay.
And we're on TikTok as well. Same exact address.
TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to impress you and say that I'm on TikTok too.
Oh, yes.
We're learning.
I'm not very good, but we'll have to go check you out over there too.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. You can find us, of course, at www.educational.com. We're on all the major podcast platforms, as well as all the social media platforms. A copy of this interview, a video of this interview will go up on our YouTube channel when we post it as well. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your loved ones.
Thank you.
Thanks.